Clubs are the symbol of scars that are caused by quarrels that split them apart. Spades dig a grave of unkindness and shame. They use them to bury their hearts.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this week's edition of What's So Funny. Our guest, oh my goodness, I'm excited, for two-time world magic champion, world champion of magic, Sean Farquhar. And of course, your host, who's always upset when he finds out that his hair's been disappeared, Guy McPherson.
Oh, that was really funny, wasn't it, Sean?
I thought it was hilarious.
Yeah, you thought it was.
I that his hair's been disappeared? What am I?
Yeah, you can disappear something now. Disappear isn't just...
thanks for the learnings.
Yeah.
The learnings.
Yeah,
It's
I don't know.
Past tense for disappeared.
Yeah.
Disappeared.
That's okay. I'm just an idiot.
Yes, but it's very exciting. Sean Farquhar is our guest. What is the official title? You say two-time world magic champion?
Yeah, that's what people say. I won the Federation International Society Magic Grand Prix World Champion, and I also won the World Championship of Card Magic, both in the same year in Beijing, China. So they say two-time World Champion of Magic.
Wow, so both in Beijing?
Yeah, same time. Like simultaneous. Well, I won the World Championship for Card Magic.
And then you went next door and won the other one?
Well, no, they take all the world champions and make the world champions compete against each other to find out who the world champion of the world champions are.
Oh, so how are there different world champions?
Because there's world champion for cards, world champion for sleight of hand, world champion for manipulation, world champion for stage magic, mentalism, comedy magic. And so they have 7, 8, 9, 10 categories.
Wow.
10 categories of world champions. And then they pit them against each other.
For the big Grand
Prix world champion.
And you beat them all.
Yeah. Well, there's 2 categories in that, too, so it gets even more confusing. Because they have the what they call close-up magic and stage magic. And so stage takes 7 of them, and the close-up takes 3. So I beat 2 other people in mine to win the Grand Prix World Championship of close-up magic. And my friend Shoma from Hungary won the Grand Prix World Championship for stage magic.
Wow. Have you ever done stage magic?
I did. That's how I started my life, and I still do it.
You started your life in stage magic?
They started my magical career. Yeah,
Okay.
I actually started my life. My mom says when I was born, the doctor slapped me, and I said, pick a card. So, yeah, pretty much that's all I've ever done.
Wait a second. You had cards in the womb?
Yeah, I did.
Wow.
In fact, my daughter did too. You can look. When we announced that my wife was pregnant, we put up the little sonogram picture, and it had the little baby curled up, and I photoshopped little playing cards into her hand, covering up, so it said, "It's a magician."
Wow.
I'm a little possessed with the magic thing.
Yeah, well, it runs deep in your family, doesn't it?
It does.
Like many generations.
4th generation without a real job. My daughter can do anything she wants to as long as she's a magician.
Anything.
I'm kidding. She can do close-up stage. It doesn't matter.
Could she be a comedian?
I thought about that. I tried that a long time ago. It's hard.
You tried that.
Oh, yeah.
You were telling us off air that in the early days, you used to tour BC, playing little bars and whatever with guys like former guests, Richard Lett. The first guy who told me about you, in fact, was the late Mark Dennison.
Mark and I were dear friends. I loved him, and he was always encouraging. He was the first guy to actually tell me to go out on stage once without a magic trick. It was in Oak Bay Hotel in Victoria.
My home, that's where I'm from. Oak Bay.
And I was opening for Dave Squatch Ward.
Oh, yeah. It's a Stu Scott gig.
Yeah, it was a Stu Scott gig. And I left everything that was shiny in the car and went in. I was about 7 minutes into my 20-minute spot, and I was dying. And Squatch came out with his knife and just put it down on the table and said, "You might want to use that on yourself," and just walked off. And it was horrible. It was just because I.
So did you have a routine, or did you?
Yeah. I took all the stuff that I said in between the tricks. That was like the stand-up stuff, and I without the little magic in between, it seemed to be really cold. It wasn't, I think I'm a pretty good storyteller, but in between is really great. If, the story should be the commercial breaks in between. Look, something, I used to work with Brett Butt years ago. We would do Surrey, and it was always Wednesday night was comedy night. Stu put that one together. Oh, it was horrible.
Oh, man.
We called it Fight Night because it was Welfare Wednesday, and people would drink, and whoever went first, had a good crowd. They were loud and talking and drinking. and then the second guy would get them when they run out of money, and they start fighting each other, going, "I bought you a round of drinks, you should buy." And Brett would always go, "You go second. You have shiny objects. You'll distract them." I remember those days. I was like, "No, I'll open for you."
Oh,
It's
man.
funny, I didn't know that you worked with Brent Butt, and I was thinking of him and comparing him to you because he's a guy that I used to go see at the Urban Well, and I've seen him, of course, hundreds of times over his career. Never get tired of hearing Brent Butt stand up, ever. And same looking at your tricks. I can't tell you how many. Oh, I'm tired tonight because I stayed up till 3 a.m. last night just looking at your videos.
I'm kind of last year and a half. I've been putting a lot of stuff out there just because it was kind of fun to see, and I experiment. Like if you've seen the YouTube videos, you probably saw the vanishing bottles where I did.
I saw those.
I was standing on a street corner in Budapest, Hungary, waiting for this driver to take me someplace. I saw a Coke bottle on the street, picked it up. There was a glass window behind me, so I tried to figure out how to make it disappear. By the time the driver got there, I had a way. So when I got to the restaurant to meet the VIPs, I vanished the bottle, and everybody went crazy. I said, "Film that for me so I can see what it looks like," because I'd only seen it in a reflection in a window of a store. He did it. I go, "That's really good. I should put that on the internet." And over the next about month and a half, I filmed it in Russia and Germany and Vienna, and then started filming in my backyard. And the cool thing is, not one of them uses the same method. Magicians are usually, they work on one method and they perfect it, and then that's how the effect works. I really wanted the experiment of how many ways could I make the effect use a different method. And so every one of them is completely different from the next, which was a real fun experiment for me.
Right, because you're just obsessed by magic.
I am. I'm addicted to it.
And I would imagine, correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, you were the president of the Magicians.
International Brotherhood of Magicians, world's largest magic organization.
And Sisterhood?
Well, we call it Brotherhood because it's really old, but we have lots of women in it, and we've actually polled them, and none are upset that it's called a Brotherhood.
Okay, good.
Well, one is. I can't say none because I know of one who really was like, "It'd really be nice if we just changed it to the International Magicians." And I'm like, "Yeah, no." It's like IBM. We had it before there was an international business machine.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
IBM. There you go. But you must know some magicians who get a trick. Okay, like you say, this is the way I like to do it from a comfort level or whatever, but also maybe just a lack of interest in searching out new and exciting ways to challenge yourself and to wow the audience.
It's the same in just about everything. I mean, in music, there are people that just hear somebody else sing it, they become the cover band, and they're successful and make a living doing it. They do it
and
just
do a
the
good
way.
job
Yeah,
of it.
they do a great job, and the audience is entertained. Sure, thousands of those. Same as comics, guys who have stock material that go out there and still work.
Well,
and which is sad. But it's the same in magic. And there are guys who, just do other people's. There is a couple out there that just recently are doing, the greatest hits of other magicians, and they're becoming successful because audiences go to see it, not knowing that, one person's effect is theirs. And then there's other people like me. I'm always creating, and I'm always selling my ideas. I don't think they all have to just be mine. I love to see when other people put a spin on them or their interpretation of my effect. And if they come up with a better way to present it, even cooler. If they come up with a worse way and say they've improved it, really disheartening to me. And that happens once in a while. But
so you don't mind when you're copied?
Well, let's not say copy, because I do mind if I'm copied. I don't mind if I inspire.
Okay,
and
what's
I'm
the
happy. I'm happy if I give you something like a perfect example. Penn and Teller's Fool Us. The second time I went on, I did a trick with a book.
Yeah,
and
I saw it on Saturday night.
Cool.
No, live by somebody else.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
There you go. Well, I've sold 4,000 units of it around the world.
Oh, okay. So that was okay with you.
Totally okay with me. As long as they did their own interpretation of it. If they did every line exactly as I did it, then I just think they're being really non-creative. And I say, I put out a digital download with it that teaches them the effect. And then I actually teach them other methods too, in case they want to go in a different direction with it. And then I spark them by saying, you can do this, try this idea. Or you can watch these, and I put like 6 performances of me doing it where they're not the same. So they've got bits of everyone. If you just go and you take one of them and you do it exactly as it is, that's really uninspiring. And it doesn't upset me, but it kind of disappoints me. But if you can,
But
take
you got their
parts-
money, so that's okay.
Yeah, I don't have it. It goes to the College Fund Productions. It's for my daughter to go to university.
To become a magician.
Yeah,
She can
yeah.
study at home.
Yeah,
No,
she's
is
already
she-
told me she's going into publishing, and she wants to be a writer.
Oh.
And maybe work for a publishing house, and maybe a social worker. Something that doesn't pay is what she'd like to do.
Well, every university needs a press.
Yeah.
So Magician U Press.
Exactly.
There you go. That's
Magician U.
Exactly.
It's the best.
He's wearing a hoodie.
It says Magician U.
Yeah.
It's a website that I put together to try to change the way magicians learn, because a lot of young kids learn off of YouTube, and old guys seem to only learn off of books. And I think that there should be some sort of meet in the middle of video and book, audio, and so I'm trying to build this site in the future. It's just getting going, but I want a place where people can come and get good resources for both.
Speaking of being copied, what I posted on the What's So Funny blog, available now on the internet, is your trick to the music.
Shape of My
Sting.
Heart.
Shape of My Heart.
Isn't that a
I said it's
beautiful
the
piece of
most
music?
Elegant trick. I don't know. Oh, look at that.
I love that music.
You do.
I really do.
But it just is, by itself, it's okay. It's a nice song. It's Sting, right? But with your trick to it, it's just...
It's ridiculous.
It's
Thanks.
ridiculous.
It changes. I do it in most live shows. This last week I was on the Disney Fantasy cruise ship. I got to do it twice in a theater that seats 1,250 people. And a woman came up to me in the meet and greet line at the end, and she literally had tears running down her face. I said, "Are you okay?" And she says, "I was moved to tears by your song, and it just I've been standing in line for 15 minutes to meet you, and I just can't stop crying." And I was like, "Wow, that is just to me, a huge badge of honor." And I was in Mexico, and the music came on above in the restaurant, and this couple looked over at me, and you could see them just kind of twisting their heads slowly, and I was like, and I went, "Hello," and they went, "Oh, it's him," and I'm like, "How is it's?" I have a friend, Kieran Buffrey, who's a cruise director, and he phoned me at 5 o'clock in the morning, 5 a.m. I thought someone had died. I answered the phone. I said, "Hello," and he goes, "Sean, it's Kieran." I'm like, "Hey, everything okay, Kieran?" He goes, "I'm in Mexico, just got off the ship having breakfast, and The Shape of My Heart came on in the cafe." And I'm like, "Yeah?" And he says, "I was thinking of you." And I'm like, "Well, that's pretty cool, thanks." And he goes, "1 second, what's that?" And he's like having a conversation with somebody, and he goes, "The couple at the table next to me asked me if I'm talking to you, because they were thinking about you too." And I'm like, "You're kidding me." He says, "No, seriously." He says, "Okay, that's really weird, right?" I said, "No, it's really weird that you're calling me at 5 in the morning to tell me that, a song's smart." Yeah.
But that is a fantastic trick that
Thanks.
you devise. And anyone who hasn't seen it, go to YouTube or go to the What's So Funny blog and
Go to
look
What's So
at it.
Funny blog.
I saw it first at the PNE.
Yeah.
You do this magic show.
Well, Murray Hatfield produced a show called Unbelievable. It was his second year doing it.
Yeah, I didn't know about it 2 years ago.
It
This
did-
past year is
did record
fantastic.
numbers 2 years ago. So many people went to see it that the PNE said, Patrick Robert's Productions went, "We need to have Murray back." And Murray selected some new people that were phenomenal. Chipper Lowell, phenomenal comedian, Danny and Stacey Cole, and of course himself and Teresa. They produce it, Murray and Teresa. And they asked me to be on. I'm like, "Sure." And they said, "Want to do something weird?" He says, "Normally, you close with Your Shape of My Heart. We'd like to put it like right up at the top of the show without an introduction. We'll just put you on a stool out in the audience for
Out in the
8,000 people, and
audience, yeah.
you have a great time." And we went from 5,000 to 8,000 people a night, and it was, I'll be honest, nerve-wracking to go out there without anybody knowing who you are and just go, "Hey, hi, want to see a card trick?" and then do it with this camera and this guy, Jordan Cruz.
Yeah, we should say it's on a big screen so
massive
everyone
screen.
can see
Yeah.
it. Really great production value. At
It
this
really
show.
comes down to the people that are filming, because they're basically being the audience's eyes. I have a guy, Quincy, on the cruise ship who works with me, and Paul. These are two of the best cameramen I ever worked with. Jordan Crew is a guy from here in Vancouver, and they learn. They ask you all these questions about how should I be, and I'm like, not like a camera guy. Don't be smooth and fluid. pretend it's the first time you're seeing it every time. So when I point to my mouth, I want you to jerk the camera up. So it's like you're surprised and you're looking at me because it's going to be hard for a camera guy. And I'm like, try to go, oh. And when they hear the reaction, they go, yeah. And I said, you really are interpreting for the whole audience what they should be seeing if they were right in front of me. Right. And it's, I'm very blessed to have found the music, to be able to put some magic to it. And I try to do that with a lot of magic and music. I have another one with Etta James and a rope. Natasha Bedingfield in a little book, a whole bunch of stuff like that.
And we played a song off the top, Clubs, Spades, Diamonds, and Hearts by Hank Thompson. I was hoping that maybe that would inspire you.
I'll be working on it. I already asked you for the artist name because my thought was Hank Thompson. Because it really lends itself to doing something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
Somebody had another one from Motorhead, but I couldn't do anything with that. And the Backstreet Boys, Shape of My Heart. No, there's no going with that one either.
No.
I
don't know that one. Is it the same song?
No.
Oh, it's completely different.
Nope. It's terrible.
Shape of My Heart on.
Yeah, it's not the same.
Jeez.
It's not the same.
Okay. But I've seen your trick there, the Shape of My Heart trick. Others are doing this on YouTube now.
Yeah, there's a lot of tributes to me out there.
Is that good?
If they're doing it identical, it's kind of sad. I saw a young man from Asia who did a presentation, and I shared it on my Facebook page. And
I saw that.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And everybody's going, what the heck are you sharing it for? I said, it's brilliant. I didn't write the song. I don't own the rights to Sting. Yeah. I love the song, and if you can find your own interpretation of it,
yeah, that's because at first I was going, oh, what is this? He's copying, and then I saw it. No, he brought his own
interpretation to it. And I love that. That's what's great about magic is that you can learn different skills and create in a different way.
Mm-hmm. So I want to go back, and you said your father, your grandfather, great-grandfather too?
Yep.
All magicians.
All magicians.
Where in the world was your great-grandfather?
Great-grandfather was in Scotland. My grandfather started in Scotland, came to Canada. And my father was here, of course. My father was in the military 27 years, Canadian Armed Forces, and he did USO tours, UN tours, and all sorts of great magic. Built my first magic tricks for me. We went all over Europe.
He was a working magician, even though he was in the
in the military and still doing magic. And in fact, if you win the Victoria Magic Circle's Magician of the Year award, it's the Farquhar Award, named after my dad.
Really?
I've never won it. I belonged to the Victoria Magic Circle until I came to the Vancouver Magic Circle 20-some years ago. I'm still a member of the Victoria Magic Circle. Still haven't won it.
You lived in Victoria?
Yeah, I lived in Victoria. Graduated from Spectrum High School.
Oh, really?
Oh, man.
Oak Bay?
Oh.
Esquimalt.
Oh, well, Spectrum High School is built on my grandparents' land.
I did not know that.
And right across from it, all those orchard streets were their orchards.
Is that where the theater?
Yeah.
Farquhar
Theater
at
the university.
That's your family.
Yeah, my family.
Hey, wow.
Our family.
Legends.
Yeah. Legends?
Victoria.
No.
That's amazing.
Farquhar Theater. I don't know Farquhar Theater.
Farquhar Theater's at the University of Victoria.
It's gorgeous.
When I graduated,
you mean where the McPherson Library is?
Exactly.
No relation.
And the McPherson Theater.
That's right.
There's a McPherson.
No
I
relation.
played the Mac many times. I love the McPherson Theater.
Oh, there you go. I didn't know that. I didn't know where you. I thought because on Wikipedia you don't know. Is that you were born in Manitoba?
I was born in Portage la Prairie, Manitoba, the middle of nowhere. My brother and I were both born there, and then my dad took that place off the tour. I said, I shouldn't have taken that one off. Should have taken it off 9 months before. So, Thunder Bay, it was really cool. No kidding, Dad.
So you got a brother?
Yeah, I have an older brother.
And was he into magic?
He was supposed to be the magician until one day he told my dad he wasn't really interested and went to become an animator. He's just retired and moved to PEI, but he was a Disney animator, and then he worked for...
He got you the job on the cruise?
Yeah, no. But he created things like the Tailspins for Disney. He was chief animator on that.
Oh, wow.
And, he's done some amazing stuff. And he worked here in town on things like Delaney and Friends with mouse hockey and all that, and tons of TV shows. What was that one called? Reboot? Yeah, Reboot was a little computer guy that ran around inside. Yeah, my brother worked on all that.
Very cool.
Wow.
Yeah,
I tell everybody. Family.
Tell everybody my brother is the talented one. I just do the family business.
It's a family business.
It really is, though, when you think about it. It's the truth.
So you say he was supposed to be the magician.
Yeah, my dad was good teaching him tricks and stuff, and he just showed no interest in it. And it was like I was learning from watching my brother. So when my dad stopped teaching my brother, it was like my turn.
So you were always interested, by being ignored.
Just by being ignored. And that's what I did with my daughter. Instead of like forcing her into magic, I haven't really taught her a lot. But as it's progressed, she's wanted to learn and see. And put her in the show. Oh, when she was small, 9 months of age, we used to make her appear out of a little toy box. And so I could say, would you like to see my first production? And then I'd produce her, and my wife would walk out and go, your first production? Well, I had a part in it. She'd go, yeah, small part, and walk off. But the good thing was I got to write them both off in my taxes because they were on stage,
Exactly.
right? Smart. Come on.
That's perfect.
Yeah, you don't use an assistant, do you?
I used to use my wife all the time. My wife and I were a partnership. And
Is that how you met?
No, we met camping, and I tried to impress her, and she had no interest in me. But her friend had an interest.
You were trying to show her tricks?
Yeah, I was trying to show her card tricks, and she didn't care. And then I told them I was working downtown in Sandman on Georgia, and they came down the next weekend in October, and they around this time of the year, probably even like the 26th of October, 1980, a long time ago. And I made a rose appear. I had this elegant show in a little tuxedo, making doves appear, and a bad pencil-thin mustache. And I tossed the rose out.
I'd love to see that.
She and her friend fought over it, so I thought it was... Yeah, you can Google that. There's some terrible... I was really channeling my inner Mandrake. Mandrake, the magician from the comic books, was a real man from New Westminster. And I wanted to be...
I knew that.
Yeah, I wanted to be Mandrake when I was a kid. His sons, Kim, Lon, and Ron. Lon still does magic. Ron passed away. He fell off a building and smacked his head. Kim became a musician in New York. But Lon is a member of our magic circle here in town and does mentalism mainly.
That's amazing, Mandrake the Magician, because it just seems like a mythic,
real guy,
fictional guy.
Yeah,
he was real and from New Westminster. You say, and Canada has a good.
His final home was in Surrey. It just burned. Just recently, it was on fire, and they talked about Canada has a very rich history in magic. When Leon passed away, my friend David Wilson and I hosted his wake, and we did it in New Westminster at the theater. We closed it down. It's a strip club, and we asked if we could use it for a night. We closed it down, changed it over to the last appearance of Mandrake, pulled all the posters out of the bathrooms, took the pole off the stage. Velvet, his wife, came, and we were hoping she didn't know what the place was. And we said, nothing but great stories.
Her name's Velvet.
Your name's Velvet. Yeah, she was a beautiful lady. She got up on stage. She said, this is a wonderful tribute to my husband. She says, you think a long time ago, Leon did tricks in here? And it's my understanding they're still doing them here.
So she knew.
She knew. Totally knew. It was good.
Wow. But yeah, Canada's a rich history.
Massive
in magic.
history.
So a couple of your favorites, Doug Henning.
Yeah.
It's an illusion.
I grew up on Doug, absolutely the best. And Di Vernon, the greatest magician ever to walk the face of the earth.
I've been a big fan of since last week.
Yeah, when you guys found out when you and Wes and Sam were all having a conversation.
I went home and he does have videos.
He does, yeah.
I went
he has
home
a couple. I had the opportunity to meet him a couple of times. He befriended me, and I did a magic trick on him. And in the lobby of the Magic Castle, he said, "Show me that." And I said, "Pardon? What are you working on?" And I told him. He goes, "Do it for me." So I did it for him. Do it again. I did it again. He
Sounds
goes,
like him.
Do it face up. I did it face up. He goes, "Well, that's not shit." And he just walked away. For years, I didn't do the trick because I thought he didn't like it. And then they said, "Who have you shown it to?" And I said, "Well, I showed it to Vernon, and this is what he said." And they went, "Well, show it to me." And I was like, "What?" He said, "Show it to me, because if he said it isn't shit, it's good." And I'm like, "That's a good thing?" And he says, "That's like the highest compliment you can get." And I was like, "Oh my God."
Crusty character, was it?
Yeah, and he would pit his students against each other, and but he was really a smart thinking man who really made close-up magic a thing.
But was he more of a magician's magician? Like he didn't have the name like Doug Henning.
Vernon worked
like
in the
Penn and
social
Teller.
circles. Yeah, he worked in the social circles, and he worked for the elite, and he worked like the Rainbow Room in New York and the Rockefeller. And yeah, he played, and he dressed as a Harlequin, and he did these routines. And he's more famous among magicians, but yeah, he was a brilliant magician. Doug Henning, phenomenal magician. Penn and Teller, awesome. They're just, but it's so much easier to become famous nowadays than it was back then. I remember less than maybe 12 years ago now, I was in England and watching a guy busk on the street. His name was Stephen Frayne, and he looked hungry. At the end of his set, I said, I could put a couple of pound in your hat, or I could buy you lunch. Oh, lunch. So I took and fed him a meal. And 2 years later, he changed his name to Dynamo, and he had his own television series. And I was like, wow, what happened there? And genuinely nice guy who never lost sight of where he came from, still hasn't to this day. And I see them all the time. Last week, I was in Reno, Nevada, and across the street from where I was performing, was Adam Trent from The Illusionist. It's a big production show just finished on Broadway. He had his own show over there. He's a young kid that I gave an award to when he was like 14 or 15. And I tweeted, and he was, come to the show. Put me in the front row with champagne. And it was like, this is kind of bizarre. It's easier. I can't say it's easy, but it's much easier now to gain fame than it was in Vernon's era. In Vernon's era, it was print and radio, and there was not a lot to promote. You had to go city to city, town to town. Now you just put something on the internet, and if it clicks, you're awesome.
That's right. And so in your great-grandfather's day in Scotland, like who was he looking at? I guess reading books?
He was looking at small little pocket books that were published, little dime things to teach new tricks, and going to the Magic Circle, because those were the places, magicians, we still do. We gather in secret locations and talk new tricks and share ideas and have our little friendly competitions to see who's good amongst each other, and we mentor each other. And that's the way it was.
So speaking of Magic Circles, you're doing a show.
The
November 4th and 5th, the Performance Works on Granville Island.
Yeah.
Now, people say, I said this with Wes last week, people go, where do you see magic?
It's hard at the Waterfront Theater.
Oh, is it Waterfront?
Yeah.
Oh, I got to change that on the blog.
Yeah, it's at the Waterfront Theater, November 4th and 5th. And it's really rare that
it's
there's...
the 75th anniversary of the Vancouver Magic Circle.
Our Magic Circle, 75 years old, which means I've been a member for a third of it. Wow. And they asked me to produce the big show, and I said, what would I bring in? And I was like, well, we can bring in some of our members as an opportunity to be in front of audiences, but we should really show them the best of magic. And they said, who? And I said, I'll invite friends. And I've got 3 coming in. Andrew Goldenhurst from Southern California. He's a 2-time Parlor Magician of the Year for the Magic Castle. And I've got Hannibal. He's coming all the way from South Carolina, Southern California, South Carolina. And the third is Jackie Yu. He's from South Korea.
South Korea, and you're from South Canada.
And I'm from the south of Canada, about as close to the border as you can get. And then other members of the circle on each night different, so the shows will be different both nights, and an opportunity to see, well, Jackie, you probably saw him on America's Got Talent, and Hannibal is unbelievable. He's done TED Talks, and Andrew is he's just Andrew. We just finished doing a Japanese TV special together, and the guy speaks Japanese. He showed the freakiest trick. He said, I just got a tattoo. And I'm like, really? You didn't strike me as a tattoo guy. And he raised his arm. There was this beautiful colored butterfly on his forearm. And I'm like, that's very masculine, that butterfly. And then he slowly peeled it off. He goes, it's just temporary. And I was like, oh, okay. And then he squished it up in his hand, opened his hand, and this monarch butterfly flew out of it and flew out of his hand and around the room. And I was like, okay, that was really cool.
That's insane.
Yeah, right?
It's
like,
wow.
Yeah. So kind of special.
So it's going to be two shows, same shows.
The 3 stars are the same. I'll host in both, but then the other acts in between will be different people each night from the Magic Circle, giving our members an opportunity to perform.
That's great.
Yeah, well, we want to encourage our members, and that's how they grow and get better. And and I really want to do something that our club is about exposing people to magic, not each other. We can learn all we want from each other, but to actually get out there, because there is very few places to find live magic in BC, in Canada. It's just, I was laughing. I was looking at Canada Council Arts grants. One of my students wants to apply for one, and magic is listed so far down. It's under and others, and it lists circus, ventriloquist, mimes, and jugglers and magicians. Like we're the and at the very end, and I'm like, oh, wait, you just put circus arts, like, isn't that like Cirque du Soleil? They should be like a little bit higher, like on the chart, right? It's like, nope, they're in the with us and others. Yeah.
Where is it best in the world?
The best magicians in the world?
No, not the best magicians, but where is it where people can go out and see magic on a more regular basis?
Europe. All over Europe.
Really?
I'm going to do 17 cities in Spain in the near future. I'm working currently right now with a producer. We're going to do 30 cities in Germany with a tour. When you go to Germany, they have the GOP, all these theaters, and they're almost in every city, and they're variety shows where adults go out, drink, have a little food, and watch amazing variety acts. Jugglers, acrobats, mimes, crazy clowns like KGB clowns, and magicians. magicians. Magic is really treated as a theatrical art form there. I have a friend in Berlin, has his own magic theater. Every week, people come, about 50 to 100 people. In New York, great place to see magic. Monday Night Magic. Every Monday night, there's a magic show. It's been the longest off-running Broadway show. Steve Cohen has been at the Waldorf Astoria for like, I don't know, a decade. It's like $100 a seat to go see him, and he only allows 40 people or something to come see him in one of the suites at the Waldorf Astoria. There's some great places right now.
So you should put on a show here every
Darren
week.
Brown was in New York for a while, and there's tons in New York. I would love
and the Magic Castle too.
and the Magic
you
Castle in
mentioned
Hollywood
LA.
is every night. So there's some really great places. I would love, if I really thought that the Vancouver community would support live magic on a regular basis, I would love it, because I'm traveling 280 days a year. This year, I've been to 41 countries. I still have another big leg still to go. I leave in another 4 days, and I'll be gone until like December something.
I know
With
it
my
was
one
tough.
jump home
It
for
was
the
tough
fourth.
booking you for this show.
It really, but you getting me in the same year that you asked me. Most places it's the third or fourth year. A couple of them I contacted and their programs were gone. And I was like, I'm so sorry. It's,
Yeah, and you mentioned, by the way, we got to say our guest tonight is Sean Farquhar. The show is What's So Funny on CFRO, Vancouver Co-op Radio, 100.5 FM. I'm Guy McPherson. Sam Toning's over there, and Sean was telling us before we went on air, he was listening to this very program in Jamaica last week.
I was.
Yeah,
It was
so
very cool.
That's very cool for us. So yeah, there are places all around the world. You're like crazy.
Yeah, I'm just everywhere. And it's
Like a magician should be.
I think so, but I would love to be at home. I would love to find. I have sitting in my garages enough technical equipment to build my own theater: light, sound,
Really?
curtains, popcorn machines, theater ticking, making things. I've been buying it for the last 10 years to come home. I really want to find a place here, but finding a venue that I don't even need to be big. I want like 52 seats, one for every playing card, so I can make an audience a deck of cards every night and do a card trick with them. Right?
Every seat would be
every seat would be something, and you can shuffle them up
Right.
and then tell them the order. I can think of so many things, and but I'm just not sure that the Vancouver market is.
But how would you be sure? How would you know? Just a gut
I guess
feeling?
I'd have to do it.
Yeah.
That's the only way I know. But I'm also, I have a mortgage to pay, and wife and daughter. Daughter is going to, just start university next year. So I'm in that position of, well, do I just throw away the family fortune and try to stay home, or do I continue to work everywhere else in the world? This will be like one of the most rare appearances for me to be. I jumped at the PNE when Murray Hatfield asked me to be part of the production, because it was like 17 days at home. Yes, it's the longest I've been home in 3 years, and it was exciting and fun because I was at home, and the audiences went crazy. I know that Canadian audiences love magic, and I know that. I'm just not sure that they're going to come out for it. If it's like a charged event, I hope they would. Well, we'll see with the Waterfront Theater if they come out, right? I'll tell you after that.
It's interesting because the comedy scene has really boomed, and now, in the Lower Mainland there are 3 clubs, and then you could see live comedy every night of the week in a room somewhere. And, I don't know what you would need to charge if you were doing a weekly magic show, but certainly, as Wes was saying, there are enough magicians who would be capable of putting on a good show.
Oh, yeah. There's tons of great guys in the town. This Vancouver has really bred really great magicians. Wes is a perfect example. Camilo, phenomenal example. Travis Bernhardt, tons of guys out there, Murray Hatfield, who are really, making a living. John Kaplan, and they've all done it in their own way. No two look the same. Vitaly Beckman. These guys are all unique. None of us, it was not like cookie cutter. Everybody has their own unique style, and they're all very successful. All living in the same town, having just a great time. We produce some of the most clever magicians. Will Tsai, who was on America's Got Talent, Bro Gilbert, Andrew Gerard. They were all really clever magicians. And in the magic community, they're all considered these like little icons. They're like, and when they all start realizing, hey, they're all from like our area. I'm like, our magic club is it has spawned people like Juliana Chen, first woman to win the World Championship of Magic. Murray Sawchuk has his own show at Planet Hollywood in Las Vegas now. Jonathan Scott, he's one of the two of the Property Brothers, all from our Magic Club, who have all become huge.
Wow.
All in their own little way, because we foster kind of a nice feeling to help each other and to promote it. But we just need to get out there and find a way to let the audiences see it.
It's kind of like that in the Vancouver comedy community, isn't it, Sam? Like, it's very, compared to what I hear of Toronto comedy community,
Yeah.
There's a real camaraderie here.
There is, absolutely.
In the 80s and 90s, comedy was so huge at that time. I mean, I worked everywhere. There wasn't a place you couldn't work, right? I mean, there was like there was a comedy night someplace every night, and it was like almost a brotherhood. I used to travel with Ian Boothby.
Former guest of this show.
There you go. Ian would do 20 minutes before my 40-minute magic thing. And Ian would write new material every single night. He wasn't doing the same stuff every night. Every single night he did new material. And it was like, and everybody else was spurring him on. Yeah, this is awesome. Like, just keep working on it, putting new ideas out there. Yeah, it was. The comedy world is a little different in that they can be really cruel when you fail. Magic seemed to stick together. If you go up and you die on stage,
comics love it.
Yeah, I know. They're just so compassionate to you the moment it's over, aren't they? They just they tear you a new one. I did when you spoke of Mark. It reminded me years ago. I was working Laugh Lines in New Westminster. And closing the show, it was the most tickets ever sold to their room ever. Tommy Chong had held it, and that night the owner told me I broke it by 2. And the 2 that came in was this guy and a girl late into the show. Big, robust guy, girl on his arm, walked in, and he was really loud. And I had to put him in his place because he just wouldn't shut up. And I kind of cut into him for a minute and brought him on stage, got him up there and said, check out these. And it was a big bar handcuff. And he just bent them right out of shape. And I was like, what? And I did some prison joke on him. And the whole crowd just exploded. And then they all went really quiet. And he went back to his seat. And when the show was over, Mark was like, Sean, did you really do that? And I'm like, what? And he showed me the front page. And it was a guy who just got out of prison. And he was on the front page because I guess the witnesses had died or something. He was famous for that penthouse shooting that was downtown years before. And I was like, oh, my Lord. And it was like, I walked straight across the room to him and said, I just want to apologize. I didn't know who you were, and I'm really sorry. And he looked at me and said, just go away. I think you're funny. I was like,
don't make it worse.
I go back to the comic table, and they're all looking at me going, well, you sucked, didn't you? And I'm like, oh, seriously? I said, no, do you know who that was? They said, we all know. It's like, he said, talk about dying tonight. And I'm like, shut up.
You must have performed for guys like that throughout your career.
Yeah, a few. Most of them have been really great stories. I've met so many amazing, I have a friend now, Ed and Kathy. They phoned me up and asked me if I do a wedding. I said, I don't do weddings. He said, yeah, but I'm the vice president of gaming for Microsoft. This will be a fun wedding. I'm like, yeah. And it was a whole game. He wanted me to make him disappear at his wedding. And then they all got onto a bus, and he appeared on the screen and all the video screens on the bus, telling them to go to a place, and they had to work out a puzzle to figure out where they were going. And then I made him reappear, and I'm like, yeah, this is fun. I like that. And
so it was a challenge for you. You had to create something.
I have to create all the magic for it.
And of course, he has the money to say,
it was awesome. And he had the creativity to have the ideas that I got to work with. That's one of my my pastimes in the motion picture industry here. I'm always creating for them. Like Hulu last year had a TV show called Shut Eye that I created original magic for. The writers write their own ideas. I come up with how it works. I've done it for Arrow. I've done it all the way back to like The Commish and 21 Jump Street and all those shows.
They all need magic? Or?
Yeah, all need magic and special effects or some sort of puzzle that doesn't work.
Are the characters magicians or is it magic within the story?
A lot of times it's magic in the story. Like Highlander. I did tons for the Highlander. The guy gets his head chopped off and then floats into the air. Well, how do they float in the air? They're not using CGI. It's $20,000-$30,000. They get Sean. It's $3-4 grand. It's a way better deal.
Really?
And they can actually film it. Right? They're not going, okay, the guy's in the air. Look up into the air. No, the guy's in the air. You can look at him. Right? You can film all around. And I did. Robert Englund, Freddy Krueger in one called Nightmare Cafe, where they wanted him to juggle. And I said, well, can he juggle? No. I said, well, that's awesome. So I learned to juggle upside down, laid on my back and juggled while he moved his arms. And they filmed it. Looked like he was juggling. It was like hilarious stuff. So I love those challenges. I got a team, Alex Zander and Billy Schway. They work for me now. And I basically... film companies come to me asking for ideas, and I come up with a solution and then send Alex and Billy out to run it for me because I'm not in town, and they come up with all the wonderful little magic to make it happen.
Pretty great consulting gig.
It is.
Yeah.
It really is. And it's weird because I did this one years ago called Cousins with Isabella Rossellini and Ted Danson. And
Yeah, I remember that.
so this last year, I walk on the set of Shut Eye for Hulu, and this lady walks over to me and goes, Sean? And I'm like, yes, ma'am. And she's like, Isabella Rossellini. I said, I know who you are, ma'am. I'm just kind of stunned that you remember I'm Sean. And she goes, how could I forget a magician like you? Just walked away. I was like, oh my God. It's like just blew my mind, because that's got to be 20 years in there, right? It's got to be at least 20 years.
Let's staying up till 3 watching your
There
videos.
you go. Bless her heart. Where did the bottle go?
Yeah, now, in case our listeners don't know, Sean is very enthusiastic.
No, you didn't notice that?
About his magic, about life, it seems.
Just life. I love it.
Because, and it's funny because that was Doug Henning too.
Yeah.
Really, like, he's just, hey, this is a world of wonder. This is an illusion, as I said.
First time I met Doug was in Oshawa, Ontario, in a shopping center. He was Shoo Shoo the Magic Clown, doing shoelace tricks in front of an Agnew surpass. And he looked so happy to be there doing tricks with a shoelace. And I met him and we talked. And then a few years later, he's like this huge Broadway star. And he never forgot who I was. We went in Seattle. I went to see him at the Paramount. And afterwards, he invited me for Chinese food. And he was like, do you remember when we met in Oshawa? And I'm like, how do you remember that? I mean, that's for me to remember.
How do you forget?
Yeah,
I guess,
it's like he really had a passion. And
So no matter what the gig.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what it is. As long as it's got something to do with magic, it's totally cool, right? It's like, the old Optimist where the, half glass, half full, half empty. I don't care. There's free refills, aren't there? It's like, just keep going. I've got a pretty positive outlook. Back in '88, I lost my home to a fire, and the news crews came. You can find that one on YouTube. It's great.
Okay.
It's marked a long time ago. And the news crews did a whole story on me later because they were kind of freaked out. I lost everything in a fire. News camera goes in your face. You lost everything. How do you feel? And I looked at him and said, it's going to be the easiest move I ever had. He was like, what? I said, seriously, I'm not dead. Everybody lived. I'm good. They said, yeah, but you lost everything. Yeah, not everything. I'm still here.
Still got my brain. I know how to make these
and I can start all over again.
Right.
And,
wow.
Yeah.
It's like when comedians have their acts stolen by someone, they go perform it on. You can't go perform those jokes now. You just got to do more.
Go move on.
Yeah.
Mark had the greatest story. He did his whole Tweety Bird routine. And a few nights after he did it, I was working on a film, Jumanji, and the star came to see the show, and then went on the Tonight Show a few nights later and did the routine that Mark had done, his whole Tweety Bird routine.
This would be Robin Williams.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Mark was gutted, and he said, I can't do the routine, blah, 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 blah. And Mark told me Robin sent him a huge check apologizing. And
I
was
heard
like,
he did that.
Yeah. And I was like,
after the fact.
Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, but the guy can never do the joke again because it'll be, that guy's joke. That's
like, right.
Yeah.
You stole that from Robin Williams.
Yeah. It's the only way it could possibly be. So, yeah.
But yeah, great attitude. And it's really infectious when you watch you doing your magic. Like, it's not
happens.
Jaded. It's not, here's another trick, right? It's like, I love showing you this to you.
But that can sell too. I have a friend, John, whose entire act is based on, being blah, whatever, blah, 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 blah. And when he did it in character, he became you know who I'm talking about, John Vanderput. Piff the Magic Dragon. Look at his character. It's so anti-exciting.
Right.
It can work too, right?
Right.
There's a guy, Rob Zabrecki. Look for him on the internet. Rob's from LA and used to be a music star. And his act is the exact opposite of me. When we're on the stage together at a show, it's just like yin and yang because it goes from like to, hey, how are you? And they're like, maybe he's just a little too perky. Some people say I'm hard to take because I'm on. But this is me 24/7. It's not an act. It's who I am. It's just
that's right. To thine own self, be true.
Yeah.
And did you go through periods like you said when you had the pencil thin mustache?
I tried to be suave and debonair. I found out I was suave and debonair, but that's what I tried. I really tried to be that suave guy, not talk I've had to, you won't find much internet footage of it because I've kind of tried to purge it because it's very embarrassing to look back at it.
It's a young magician's curse. I mean,
Yeah.
they see, well, I guess back then they would see magicians. The only ones they'd see that would be these.
I wanted to be Lance
swab guys.
Burton. I wanted to be a guy who was elegant, making birds appear with scarves. My wife was dressed, looked, absolutely elegant. In the long gowns, and I had the top hat, bad mustache, and I was really not being me.
How long did it take?
A long time, and I really stress it to young magicians when they come to me, to find yourself early. It was 1993 or 4. I was on a cruise ship and doing my Suave and Debonair act. We were in Civitavecchia, which is a port to Rome. We had the day off. My wife and I went into Rome, had some wine, ate some pasta, had some wine, walked around, had some wine, came back to the ship to a cruise director screaming that we were late, we were on. And I said, tonight's my night off. He said, no, the juggler had hurt his wrist and we were doing the show. And I said, I can't. He said, why? I said, I'm drunk. He goes, get out there. I remember being I remember parts of the show, but it was so bad that I stopped and sat down on the edge of the stage and apologized to the audience. I'm sorry. If my grandpa were here, he'd die. He's already dead, but if he was here, he'd die again. And this guy goes, why? I said, well, because the show isn't going the way I normally do it. He said, why would your grandpa? Well, he was a magician. My grandfather, my great-grandfather, and I started doing the lines that I now do as a regular part of my life. And they were my social talk, but they weren't part of my show. And the audience started to like me. And about 3/4 of the way through, I went, you want to see some tricks I can't screw up? And I walked off the stage and grabbed some stuff out of the box and started doing it. My wife goes, what do you do? I said, saving the show. And I did the tricks. And it was the first time in my life an audience leapt to their feet. I got lots of standing ovations. It was kind of regular, but all of a sudden they just went, and I was like, whoa. And
it was a difference.
It's different. And when I left the theater and stood at the back, almost everybody shook my hand. And they had 2 comments. One was, your grandfather be proud of you, and the other was, I think he really is drunk. That's the truth. And then in the second show, because I had to repeat it, I tried to do what I did the first time, but Hollywooded up. And I started to suck. And I realized I was starting to suck, and I stopped and sat down on the edge of the stage and went, let me explain what I'm trying to do. And when I got honest with the audience, it changed. And they saw that I actually had a passion, that I was embarrassed, that I was trying to do something that wasn't me. And I would love to say it happened overnight. But over about maybe 3 or 4 months on that ship, I slowly became me. And my wife, who was always named Felicity, was Farquhar and Felicity. I became Sean Farquhar, and she was Laurie, her real name. And it was a progression. I mean, there were points where people didn't like me because they're like, he's calling her Felicity, then Laurie. He got like 2 women in his world, and he can't keep them straight. It was like really hard.
That transition, yeah.
Yeah. But when I finally did transition and just started being me, the world opened. I all of a sudden lost a whole bunch of material because there was all that stuff that me couldn't do, right? None of that suave stuff. None of that elegant
the
stuff.
big box kind of thing?
I've got 21 major illusions at my house in big ATA cases. And I went down to like 6 of them. And every one of them had to be something that brought a truth to the story of my life and my family. And I started talking about my family and in my show and my career. And I started actually sharing who I am. And I love it. I mean, things like I would talk about the World Championship and how 11 of my friends came with me, and there was an audience of 3,500 people. Got to be over 40 video cameras, television cameras from all over the world filming, and they announced world champion from at the time I lived in Millardville, and they said from Millardville, and my 11 friends jumped to their feet, and this head judge stopped and goes, look at that, he's getting a standing ovation from 11 Canadians. That's like 6 Americans with exchange. And I was like, the crowd went nuts, and I was like, nobody gets your joke. It's like, and he looked at me and he said, where is Millardville? And I looked right back at him and smiled and said, it's where the trophy's going. It's like, and for now, I try to share that in the story because it's part of exactly how it happened, how good it was. He even said the head judge, the president, Eric said, what was his line? He said, and the world champion, you won't believe it. And I'm like, why wouldn't you believe it?
Yeah,
it's like, well, I'd been to the World Championship twice before. I went in 2003, and I won second prize.
Oh, well, that's pretty good.
Yeah. And,
for a Canadian?
Yeah, and I was like on page 37 of the Globe and Mail. And then I went back in Stockholm, Sweden in 2006, and that time I competed in both close-up and stage. I won second prize in both, and never been done before.
Fantastic.
And I was like on page 27 in
You're moving up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It didn't move anywhere. It just stayed in the back. But the front page had some team that got 13th for rowing or something, so way better. That was a front page. And so I just basically was like, whatever. And then I went back and competed one more time in Beijing. So I guess he was kind of insinuating, he's back again. And so I have I think I have the second most awards in the history of the World Championship.
Wow.
I have 5. There's another guy, Magic Christian, who has 6. And he's a way better magician than me. Way better.
I doubt that.
No, he really is. And he's retired, so, I still have time to catch up. But I'm going to wait till he passes away, I think, before I go for another one.
The lesson for young magicians out there, and maybe comics too, if you really want to find your own voice, is drink a lot before the show.
Just before the show.
Yeah,
and embarrass yourself as much as you can.
Yeah, I do that regularly.
Do you really?
Yeah, absolutely.
I can tell you, I've seen some video after I've drank and done shows, and I'm very fluid, and it's awesome, but not coherent.
No.
But I'm telling you, the moves they're pretty good.
Hey, but you are one of the best in the world. You would say that, right?
I'm.
I mean, you're humble
I-
Canuck, but you are, right?
I think my daughter put it best. A reporter said to her, "Your father's a world champion, right?" And she said, "No, that was last week." So that was 7 days after the World Championship. I was in Japan. They were interviewing, and that's exactly what she said. That was 2009. I won the World Championship. Since then, there's 3 new world champions. A young guy who was from Port Coquitlam, who now lives in Boston, Shin Lim. Phenomenal. He fooled Penn and Teller twice. The only other person to fool him twice. Good old Canadian boy, just like me.
Wow.
Yeah, there's some really great.
Coquitlam and Maple Ridge.
Yeah, I'm telling you, Port Coquitlam.
Sorry.
But close. I'm a good magician. I'm a great entertainer. And magic is this wonderful passion of mine that allows me the opportunity to be in front of audiences. I can't imagine not being in front of them.
Was the World Championships the point where you said, okay, I'm whether it's when you came in second or not, was that when you said, hey, I'm just as good as all these guys?
Nope, I still haven't got there.
You still haven't?
Yeah, I think that's yeah, I kind of doubt my own talent, and I'm okay with that because that makes me. A lot of guys put on their cards master magician. Can you imagine having a master comic? Right?
No, the worst.
You'd be the right.
You're an asshole.
Exactly.
I like that, though. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the
master
stage.
comic. Guy McPherson. Hey, how are you? No, knock, knock. How big was she? Oh, that's. It doesn't make sense to me. A comic, it is a lot ways like a magician in that a good magician and a good comic are a student for life. You're always looking at how ways to improve. You're always changing. Always reworking the stuff that really works to try to see if there's another little bit to it. I've done some material for 20 years that people go, when did you master that? I said, still working on it. And that's good. The day I say that I'm a great magician or the best or even in the top 10 is the day I should just quit. It's just
still working on these tricks that wow audiences.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I
you're
still
like
work
the
on Shape of My Heart.
Seinfeld of magic. Well, you would have to because your hands, you got to keep those in shape.
But I'm changing it. All the
you
time.
are?
Oh, yeah. I'm adapting it and changing it. Over the Pacific National Exhibition, I did 17 shows and I changed it 4 times.
Wow.
Just for the fun of it. Because I wanted to see what reactions. And it's fun when I go to places like Japan, they react to different moments than they do in Malaysia, that they do in India or a place like I went to Sri Lanka and the audience went crazy for it. And I was thinking, I'm not even sure they're going to get this. But they went crazy for it.
Why? Because they wouldn't understand the lyrics?
Yeah, I was thinking that but no, Sri Lanka, fully English speaking, unbelievable. It was like they rocked the place.
What wouldn't they understand?
I was under the assumption that they wouldn't all speak English, like in Malaysia, where
Okay.
I got there and I was like, population, they speak Hindi, Malay, Chinese, and some English, and so it was like all over the place. And yet I've never done it in China. I had an opportunity to do it, and it screwed up because the producer was goofy. But I was there. They just couldn't put together. They couldn't find a BNC patch cable between the projector and the camera. They flew me all the way to China, paid me an enormous amount of money, and couldn't find a little patch, so I didn't get to do the show.
Because that would project it to the people
To the
in
screen.
the back.
Yeah, 2,000-seat auditorium. And, they make that little patch thing in China. That's where they make them.
Is that where they make
That's where they make them. I said, come on, there must be a factory within 40 miles of here that makes billions of those little things. Nope, they couldn't find one. It was funny. So I've never done it in China, but I've done tours of China.
Cards are universal, though.
They are.
Everybody understands cards. And this is why little kids, I mean, I've seen you perform for little kids too, but sometimes magic, they don't have a firm sense of grasp of reality as it is. And they don't even know that there's not two of these cards in there.
Yeah, same as I make a handkerchief dance in a little bottle. And when you get the little 5-year-old who looks at it, they just accept that's a handkerchief dancing in a bottle.
Every day is a new adventure for them.
That's something different for them. Just nothing is cooler. I minted my own coins that have my little face on them. That I made it because I work for Disney Cruise Lines a lot, and I wanted to find some way to make the magic continue. And so I had these little coins made so that when people saw me and said hello to me after the show, I'd pull a coin out of a kid's ear and then give it to them. And I get emails all the time with photos with the kids sleeping with them under their pillows. The parents lift it up and take a picture to show me. And I've had kids just...
As long as they're not shoving them back in their ear.
Trying to shove them back in the ear, that'd be terrible. I had one, I was sitting in the airport within the last month, and this young girl came running over and started digging in her little purse, and she pulled out the coin and showed it to me. And I just it's really cool.
Yeah.
You know, there are certain things that resonate that'll be there for a lifetime, and that can happen. Humor is the best way, and I try to inject as much comedy as possible into my show, and sometimes it's situational. There used to be a club in Williams Lake called Sir Laugh-A-Lots? No, what was it called? Oh, now it's knocking me. The owner's name was Brian. Laugh-A-Lots. I think it was Sir Laugh-A-Lots.
Okay.
It was called Sir Laugh-A-Lots.
Let's go with that.
It was. And I'm doing this routine where the woman and I are blindfolded on the stage, and I'm saying my jokes one right after the other, and she starts to laugh, and I can see through my trick blindfold, and I can see that she's peeing herself. She just can't stop. And I can smell the warm urine, and I'm like,
literally peeing yourself.
She is. And I reach blindly, but I can see a glass of water, and I say, "Are you okay?" And I pick up the water, and I push it towards her, and I spilled it all over her to save her. And she ran off the stage and to the bathroom. And when the club owner came up to me afterwards, Brian says, "You did that on purpose. I know you can see that blindfold, and you covered her in water just because she couldn't stop laughing and was ruining the timing of your show." And I'm like, "I don't think you should mop that up with your hands."
Or maybe you should.
And then Brian goes, "What?" And I started explaining. He goes, "Oh, I'm so sorry, Sean. That's so cool of you." And it's like, we're good friends. And he was just so angry that in his club this would happen. The girl came out about 20 minutes later. She'd blow dried herself in the bathroom, walked straight over to me and says, "Thank you so much. I am so embarrassed." She said, "I'm 3.5 months pregnant, and it's just really at a point where, I have trouble." I'm like, "Have a good night." She left the club owner and said, "Oh, God, you weren't lying." I said, "No." He goes, "All right, that's good. That's good."
That's the thing that people need to understand in an audience. Magicians, comedians, they want you to look good.
Yeah.
They don't want to make fun of you.
Nobody wants to make fun of anybody. They just want it should be a social interaction moment where everything together. I haven't had hecklers in years, decades and decades. And it took me a while to learn how not to have a heckler, because they're not really hecklers. 98% of them are just trying to contribute to the show because they think it'll be fun.
Yeah.
And when you do it in a different way, a lot of young magicians go, "How do you handle hecklers?" I said, "I don't." "What?" I said, "I don't have them anymore. I changed my magic from being confrontational and challenging to fun and exciting, and they go along with it."
Inclusive.
Yeah, inclusive. And because of that, they don't heckle because they're just involved. And if somebody screams something out, I don't point them out. I agree with them, unless it's really stupid, at which point I'll have some fun with it. But 98% of the time, it's just a good experience for them. And
right. But what great training coming up at Williams Lake, and playing bars all over BC.
You name it. Tabor Arms and Prince George and Solly's Pub and Prince
so
Rupert.
You've had to deal with it.
I played them all.
So now bring it if anyone wants to heckle.
I can take them down. Yeah, but I won't. It's just not my style now. But I had every line there was, and I probably used them all. Because I used to be very combative in my magic. It was always very confrontational.
Combative magic.
Everything was a challenge. Check those out. You see anything wrong with them? There's nothing wrong with them, and you won't find anything. And now you put them on to me, and then
stupid.
I'm gonna. Yeah. And it was like, "Hi, I fooled you. You're an idiot." And it was like, but it was funny, and the audiences were digging it. No, nothing wrong with that. They were, "Oh, it was funny. Look how we just took the piss out of that guy." And it was like, no, it's not cool. Now it's like, we can have a good time, and I can show you great magic, and we can actually be friends while doing it. And afterwards, you'll like me.
Did you start out? You had a TV show or something when you were young?
When I was
What was
young.
that?
I had a television show. A guy named Billy Stewart's mom, Annabelle, was a producer of a TV station, and she saw me doing some magic with her son and said, let's do this. So they were 15-minute inserts that played all over the east coast of Canada. Apparently, I sold the rights for absolutely nothing, so I got nothing for it, and that's okay with me because it was huge back in the day. Tommy Hunter saw it and invited me to tour with him, so I opened for Tommy Hunter.
You opened for Tommy
and
Hunter.
Then Stomping Tom Connors worked
Wow.
for him, and then so it was about 30 years ago now. Yeah, maybe 30 years ago. I was in Hay River, Northwest Territories, and working the Ptarmigan Inn. Oh, there's another fine comedy joint. And the owner looked at me and said, your voice is kind of annoying. It's like that kid on Saturday morning. And I'm like, what kid? And he goes, that kid, he's got like his little magic show. He's like in a red little jumpsuit from the 70s. And I'm like, oh my God. I stayed up the next morning, Saturday morning, and watched me as my little 12-year-old me doing magic. I was like, that shouldn't be anywhere out there. I'm hoping they're all burned now or something. They're gone.
I was going to say, is that on YouTube?
I haven't seen them anywhere, and I'm hoping they never pop up.
I gotta check
Budget
that out.
was really low. I used the same box and put new paperwork on it or whatever, and yeah, we had like 2 rabbits was our budget.
And then you were also on Talk About?
Yeah. Oh my heavens! Yeah.
With Wayne Cox?
Yeah.
You know this show, Sam?
No.
It was a game show filmed in Vancouver, and I think it was syndicated for a bit in the U.S.
Yeah, I think it went to the U.S.
Now, you were just a contestant.
I was a contestant. My wife and I were contestants, and we took on the all-time greatest champions and almost won. We came the closest to beating them. They retired them afterwards. The couple, they knew everything. And the final one was they would have a subject, and you had to talk about it.
Yeah.
And then whatever was left, that's what you got to see. And so these girls talked while we were in the soundproof booth. And when we came out, there were only 3 words left. Heavy Series Godzilla. Now, my wife and I trained for 3 nights practicing. And normally on Wednesday night, we would go to the Blockbuster across the street and we'd buy one of those dollar videos, rent them. And it was always something with a subtitle or some piece of crap. And then we would turn off the subtitles. You know, you just stretch out the screen so the subtitle would go off the edge of the screen, turning the vertical and horizontal. Remember when you could do that?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we'd make up our own words for the movies. And this night we decided we would not go and do the movie. We would practice for Talk About. Wish we'd gone, because the answer to Heavy Series and Godzilla was right in our face the next day. We went to the movie place across the street, Blockbuster. We walked in, and it was a big picture of Raymond Burr, and it said Godzilla. Raymond Burr was from New Westminster, and so it was a big, and that's what it was. Heavy Series Godzilla was Raymond Burr was the answer.
Burr was the answer.
And if we'd gone across the street the day before, we'd have seen it, and we would have beat the champions.
Wait,
I
Raymond
swear.
Burr was in Godzilla movie?
Yeah, he was the only Caucasian in Raymond Burr was the only Caucasian in Godzilla.
Wow.
How bizarre is that?
Now there's the Raymond Burr Theater down in New West.
Absolutely.
So talk about, would you want to talk about liver or New Year's Eve?
New Year's Eve.
Okay. Yeah.
Liver or New Year's Eve? That's 2 choices.
Oh, yeah, those are 2 choices.
New Year's Eve. So I should talk about New Year's Eve?
I'm going to put 20 seconds on the clock. You have, see how many of these you can get. All right? Talk about New Year's Eve.
31st January celebration, Silver Ball, New York, countdown, champagne, confetti, fireworks, music, party. There's got to be more. New Year's Eve, New York.
Time's up.
Yeah.
Oh, I think
Did I get most of them?
I think you
No?
got 5 of them.
5 out of 10? 50%?
You got party, champagne.
Yeah.
I think you said midnight. 31st.
I said midnight.
Oh, okay. So
I'll be as honest
you
as
got
You
4.
totally did.
I did?
Wink,
No, I don't
wink.
think so. Someone will play it twice and
I
know
hope
for
so.
sure.
31st.
Yeah.
Celebration. It was celebrate.
Celebrate?
But you said January. It's
did.
December.
It's January
Wow.
1st, December 31st, I guess.
So
yeah.
here's
I should have
strike
said
of
both.
midnight.
New Year's Eve.
New Year's Eve. You didn't say
Here's what was left.
didn't say New York? Or the
Didn't.
ball drop?
No.
Or countdown? How
Horn-
could you miss those?
Dick Clark.
Horns, hats, happy, December, and Lombardo. This-
Guy Lombardo. How did I miss that one?
This was
Kyla, what the hell is that?
May
hell is
old
that?
acquaintance be.
Oh, man.
Canadian.
Old Lang Syne should have been on your list.
This I didn't make the list. This is from Talk About.
Is it really?
It was from Talk About.
Seriously?
Yes, it was.
You spend far too much time on YouTube. That's awesome.
Sean Farquhar, it's been a blast having you here. Thank you so much for
thanks
coming.
for having me.
I know that you're back on the road and then coming back to town
Waterfront Theater,
November 4th and
5th.
5th.
Come see
Waterfront
it.
Theater.
You'll laugh, you'll cry, it'll be shorter than Cats. Cheaper than Hamilton.
Well, that's good. It's the 75th anniversary of the Vancouver Magic Circle.
Yeah.
To be a fantastic show, right?
It will be. It'll be unbelievable. People will talk about it for years to come.
Will they? Because that'll
honestly
be
will tell it.
there won't be another magic show for years.
Nothing
to
like
come.
that. Not locally. I don't think so. I wish there would be.
Yeah.
Unless I get my own theater.
One day you got to get your own 52-seat theater.
Somebody's got a 52-seat theater space. Let me know. I got the seats sitting in my house. I just moved them all today. 52 theater seats. There, green velvet with wood backs, all stacked up in my house.
Yeah. Well, I saw you in
do.
I saw you in Chilliwack in pre-summer. I forget what that was.
Oh, you went to the Cabaret of Wonder?
I did.
Come
yeah.
check that out. I got signed up for another year. January, February, March, April. One a month at the Chilliwack Cultural Center. Michael Cade is the greatest patron of magic there is now. He hires all of us to go out there, and I get to do my Cabaret of Wonder for 4 more months.
Oh, that's great.
Once a month.
Starting in January.
Yeah, in January.
Wow.
It's the third Friday of each month.
Well, there you go.
I think. I should know
Get
that
Michael
stuff.
Cade to buy your theater.
Oh, wouldn't that be nice?
Hey?
Yeah. No,
Michael?
yeah. Hey, Michael, you're listening? Yeah. Yeah.
All right, Sean, thanks a lot. And go check out Sean Farquhar on YouTube.
Yeah.
And Penn and Teller's Fool Us. That's on there as well. Fantastic. And try to go to Waterfront Theater on November 4th and 5th.
I'll be the guy who looks like me.
Okay, perfect. You'll be the enthusiastic.
I'll be the real mellow guy.
Next week, our guest in studio, back for her third or fourth time, Shirley Nome.
Yeah, just
Will
came
be
out with a
here.
record this week.
Yeah, and she'll
Wow.
bring her guitar, I'm sure. Very funny songs.
Sweet.
Shirley Nome. All right, so no magic next week, but she's magical in her own way. All right. Thanks, Sean.
Thank you, guy.
Thank you, Sam.
Thanks,
Thank
Sam.
you.